The Motor Dream podcast is recorded on Wallamedigal land of the Eora Nation. It always was and always will be the lands of the First Nations of Australia.
This is the Motor Dream podcast.
Welcome once again to the show where we can dream just a little about what our dream garage would be if money was no issue whatsoever. I'm Connor McNally and it's a pleasure to have you once again for episode 15 of the Motor Dream podcast. We've had quite a wide array of people already on this show and we have some more guests lined up for some future episodes that will be released in due course. I can also tell you that I have a very special episode in the works as we speak, as we fast approach towards a significant anniversary in the early part of May. That's all I'll say for now, so you'll have to keep listening over the next few episodes. If you're a regular listener to the show and have been listening from the very start, thank you once again for your support. If you're a new listener to the podcast, welcome aboard and make sure you hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcasts and catch up with all the previous episodes in the library. So what is the Motor Dream podcast about? Well, I tell my guests that one day they wake up and they check their phones and they suddenly discover that they receive a text to say that they need to check their bank balance. They then open up their bank app and suddenly discover that their bank balance has gone to infinity. They are absolute billionaires. As soon as they discover their newfound fortune, they get an email from this mystery benefactor that tells them that they can spend anything that they like and they can buy any car, bike or machine that they want. There is a catch though. They are only allowed 3 cars, bikes or machines in their dream garage. Now, it sounds easy in theory, but as my guests have discovered in previous episodes, it is very hard to decide what those 3 machines would be. You get to hear from drivers and riders from within the motorsport game, as well as those who work in the motoring industry, and on the odd occasion you'll hear from some prominent personalities who all share the same passion for cars as well as motoring. Alright, let's begin by asking you a quick question. Put your metaphorical hands up if you are a regular gamer. Well, chances are you are one of the many millions worldwide who like to play on a gaming console as a form of recreation. And when it comes to motor racing, well, the rise of sim racing as an eSports platform has pushed the sport into the mainstream in recent years. In fact, participation numbers grew into the millions during the initial period of the COVID pandemic, where many of us were in lockdown and wanting to find something to do to pass the time. But sim racing is nothing new. It's been around for many years, and yet the popularity of platforms such as Gran Turismo and iRacing have paved the way for aspiring drivers to take a different road and hone their craft in the virtual world against some of the world's best sim racers and even professional real-life drivers. Josh Muggleton is one of those people who has made a name for himself in the sim racing world and has now transferred those skills he learnt online into real life. He honed his craft in both iRacing and Gran Turismo, and in 2014 he won the Australian Gran Turismo GT Academy Finals and qualified for the World Finals with a factory GT3 drive with Nissan up for grabs. Mentored by then Nissan Supercars driver Rick Kelly, Muggleton was in the hot seat to win the big prize. But a mistake by his teammate in a challenge cost him dearly, and he finished runner-up in heartbreaking circumstances. But Muggleton wasn't going to give up on carving his way into professional motorsport. Undeterred by the heartbreak of the GT Academy loss, Muggleton returned home, and after trying out different categories, he formed his own family team with his brother and decided to go production car racing. He has since become a regular mainstay in the New South Wales Production Touring Car Championship and has also dabbled in the World Time Attack Challenge, where he's been highly competitive in the club sprint category. And now he's embarked on a new challenge, a challenge to win Bathurst. No, not the Bathurst 1000, but the Bathurst 6 Hour, considered by many as the ultimate showroom showdown. At the time this interview was recorded, which was in the second half of last year, Muggleton was assisting Chris Lillis and Nathan Callahan in building a Chevrolet Camaro to tackle and attempt to win the production car endurance race that has fast become one of the highly sought-after trophies in Australian motorsport. Despite growing up in a family heavily influenced by rugby union and rugby league, his dad John is a premiership winning player for the Parramatta Eels, Josh is a proud motorsport fan and is still enthusiastic behind the wheel both in real life and in the virtual world. And it gives me great joy to welcome him as a guest on the Motor Dream podcast. Josh Muggleton, welcome to the Motor Dream podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's good to be chatting with you. It's been a while since we've had a bit of a catch-up, but people that know you in the motorsport realms know you through your sim racing exploits. You've done very, very well in sim racing, which has transgressed into the real world. There's very few people that get to do the transition from sim racing into the real world, and you've done that quite successfully, and you've done pretty well out of it.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Sim racing got me, like you said, my shot at racing in the real world, and all the way back through GT Academy back in 2014, I think it was now. They've even made a movie about it now, the Gran Turismo movie, which is about to come out or is out now, which is pretty cool. Haven't decided if I'm going to go see it yet, but yeah. So I guess at the time it was sim racing was emerging and trying to break through, and there were a lot of stigmas about whether you could turn a gamer into a real racer, which obviously GT Academy proved time and time again through various people like Jan Mardenborough and Lucas Ordonez and the likes, and even Matt Simmons, who won it for Australia as well. So, I was, just like I said, right place at the right time. That competition was on when I was sort of in my prime, so to speak, with sim racing, and things just sort of eventuated from there.
Are you actually rather proud that you were one of the, I guess, trailblazers for what sim racing has become now? Because it's become so mainstream, sim racing. Everyone has now really got on board with it. But you, along with those people that you mentioned, even some of the local drivers, people like yourself, Justin Rougier, Simon Feigl, those men, you really, pushed the popularity of sim racing into the mainstream. And are you really surprised of how much has it exploded in the last few years?
Oh, look, I am and I'm not at the same time. Like you said, I guess I am proud that I was one of the trailblazers, so to speak. But yeah, I've never really thought about it that much in terms of that. But like I said, I was just lucky that I was doing pretty well with sim racing at the time when these sort of things happened, and then obviously turn those into opportunities in the real life world. So, but no, not surprised. I from a young age, realised that I didn't have the budget to go racing myself off my own bat. So sort of turned to sim racing as an alternative or a stopgap to get my fix, so to speak. So when that opportunity came up, I thought, oh, how good's this? I've sort of been training for this my whole life. So made the most of that opportunity.
Yeah.
And but yeah, look, I'm not surprised. The way that technology has developed over the years. With peripherals that you can use in sim racing now, and the actual rigs themselves, like the gap is getting closer and closer. It's never going to be the same. Like I think we've all sort of realised that now. But as a training tool and muscle memory and all that, it's invaluable. You look at all the work that Giz has been doing, going over to NASCAR and setting up things on the simulator to get a feel for the tracks beforehand. These are multi-million-dollar simulators, so they're not what's kicking around every bloke's gaming room at home. But there's clearly a benefit to having a sim and spending some valuable time on it.
You mentioned before that you didn't have the budget to go racing. I guess I share that same upbringing, not having enough money to go and do motor racing or even just get a start in motor racing. And you obviously went down the sim racing route. How did you get introduced into sim racing?
I think it was a mate of mine when I was in high school. He had a PlayStation 1. I didn't have one at the time. And he got Gran Turismo, the first game. So we're talking, 97 or 98, somewhere around there, that long ago. And I saw the ads on TV for this game and I was like, oh, how good's that? I think I even invited him over one day and said, oh, bring your PlayStation, we should play it. And mate, the bug just stuck from there. So I think I've played every one of those Gran Turismo games ever since, and sort of grew with the games as it went on, and still play it to this day every now and again, not as religiously as I used to, obviously with life and 2 kids now and a wife and everything else. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of how I got my start. It was just, saw the ads and saw how cool it was, and obviously being passionate about cars at the time, even at a young age, it just sort of spoke to me, and that was enough. It's a nasty bug that bites,
It,
you know that.
it does, I do indeed. But actually, you could have been going down a different path, because what many people don't know about you is that you're from a rugby family. Your father's involved in the Penrith rugby side that used to compete in the Shoot Shield. So your family's been involved in the rugby side of things. Do you think life could have been a bit different had you not taken up motorsport and gone down the rugby route instead?
Oh, yes and no. Dad's moved on to the Hunter Mariners, Hunter Wildfires now, and he was with the Wallabies, and before that he was rugby league and played for Australia and the Parramatta Eels and won premierships there. So there was always that sort of path, but credit to Dad, he never forced anything like that on me. I always played soccer as a kid, never played rugby league. I think I played in one gala day at primary school, and that was it. But sort of always played soccer and cricket. I actually went overseas and played a season in county cricket in England after I finished high school. So there were always those sort of opportunities, but I always saw them as a means to get into racing. If
As
I
you
ever
do.
got to honestly, like if either got to a certain level at cricket, it was just going to be to pay to go racing. So for me, that was only ever one path that I wanted to go, and all the other paths were nice distractions at the time, but not where I wanted to end up being.
I did a little bit of sim racing probably in my late teens, early 20s, but I didn't use PlayStation. I didn't take up
Yep.
PlayStation. I went down the PC route. So I became a fan of Grand Prix 2. I think it was Grand Prix 2, which
Oh yeah.
was the Jeff Crammon game. And I was obsessed into racing that, because everyone tried to get the mods to, replace the liveries on those cars and the fan-made tracks, which a lot of them were pretty realistic for the technology that was
For the time, yeah.
exactly. And that was my my involvement, even though I was not able to race online with that game. I think that was a very convoluted process to even do that back in the day, particularly when there was dial-up. But the ability to race against the drivers of the time and try and learn your racecraft and try to tweak the setups and everything. It's a very different to Gran Turismo, but that's how I got my fix. That's how I really tried to learn racecraft. Not that well, to be honest with you, but I tried to learn my racecraft. But I found it fun. I actually enjoyed it. But then I also got very competitive. Were you extremely competitive? Did you channel all your energies when you raced Gran Turismo, and when the next one came out, you got better and better and got more aggressively competitive, or you just took...
Of course. Like I've got a younger brother who's 16 months younger than me, so
Yeah.
everything was a competition whenever we grew up. We used to play it together and either race each other in split screen or do time trials, or so everything was a competition, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I think Grand Prix was a predecessor to iRacing now. I think it was the same original people who developed that game. And you speak about making liveries and racing against real drivers. That's it. Still true to this day. I met Scott McLaughlin through iRacing and Shane Van Gisbergen and those guys who used to jump on and have fun at the time. Picking on us, plebs on the sim, but
Yeah.
got met Scott through that and got a ride in his supercar at the time, and and now these tracks are being laser scanned to the millimeter. So I remember the first time I actually drove at Bathurst, I practiced on iRacing on the sim, and by the second lap I thought I've done this before. Like, it was uncanny how close it was, and the braking markers and the bumps and everything. It's unbelievable how far it's come.
2014, you almost won the GT Academy competition worldwide. And the first prize in that was a factory drive with Nissan, because Nissan were involved at the time with the GT Academy program through Sony and through the Gran Turismo product. You just fell short, and I know how much that really stung for you afterwards, because it was on TV, and you were so dedicated to get that prize, and you, as I said, just fell agonizingly short. When you look back on it 10 years on, what's your recollection of how it all was back then? Was it still all blur back in that time, or do you look back on that as something that you're still proud of regardless?
Oh, 100% still proud of. At the end of the day, you can loosely say that I went there and represented my country.
Mm.
So to be able to do that in anything is a pretty big deal, I think. So while yes, obviously devastated at the time, and still have sleepless nights about it sometimes. Incredibly proud, and like I said earlier, just very lucky that I was able to compete in that at the time. I look back at some of the coaches and the mentors that were there at the time. Karen Chandok was one of them. Danny Kloss was another one who many people wouldn't know, but he was actually about to jump into Formula One with HRT at the time before they folded. So, Rick Kelly was there, Rob Barth, all these coaches who have driven Le Mans and European sports cars. And, it was all the stuff off camera that we learnt through, one-on-one coaching and classroom sessions and all that, which I still, keep with me to this day and apply in my driving. So, obviously incredibly fortunate and very lucky and proud, all of the above. But it's something I'm looking forward to telling my kids about when they grow up and they can understand it, and show them the videos and the TV show about it, and hopefully they'll understand a little bit of why I'm as crazy about cars as what I am now.
Are they taking up that passion of cars, your kids, or is it still too young?
Yeah, it's no. My daughter's 4 and a few months now, and she loves her cars. My son's 15 months old. He loves his cars. So
how does Jess?
Mum's going to kill me. Yeah, Jess. I think she's accepted it. It's just.
Don't worry.
It's just the way it's going to be.
Don't worry, my fiance's, she's accepting of what I do and my involvement in motorsport. But mind you, she is a Ford supporter, so I take that with a bit of confidence that everything's going to be all right. If we ever have kids and we actually go down the car path, then I think she'll be very understanding, given that she does like Fords. She doesn't like Holdens, but she likes Fords.
Look, if that's the way they want to go, then they'll have my full support. Whether or not I'll have the financial backing to put them through karting and whatever else, then cool. But more than that, if I'm still able to at the time, I can't wait to race with one or both of them and do some production car racing or anything if they want to. So, we'll just see what the future holds.
Absolutely. I want to ask you. Had you won the 2014 competition and won that factory drive with Nissan, which coincidentally Matt Simmons won 1 year later and got the factory drive, do you think if it was you and you got selected to race for Nissan at Bathurst for the 12-hour, because Bathurst, the 12-hour that year, Nissan won, do you think that could have just completely changed your life had you had gone on and been part of that lineup, or you don't really think about that too much?
Yeah, no, thanks for reminding me. That's really nice of you.
Sorry. It's an interesting question. It's one to really.
It is. It's one that's difficult to answer. At the time, if you won, you would have had to move to the UK. I think it was at least for 8 months or a year.
Yeah,
it was probably a year. Look, Jess was ready and prepared to move over there with me. She is a teacher, so she could have found teaching jobs over there or anything in the meantime. It's difficult to answer. It would have been completely different for sure. There would have been the training year overseas plus the year in the Blancpain series in Europe. So it's 100%. It would have been a completely different life. where I would be now, I'm not sure. I don't know. It's one of those things that keeps me up at night sometimes.
Like you said. But you've actually turned that into a positive because you've gone on to do quite a bit of actual road racing probably the last 10 years. You've done a lot of production car racing on state and national level. You've done the Bathurst 6 Hour, and you really enjoy it. You've really embraced doing production car racing. So although you're not in supercars, you've really enjoyed your motorsport since that time you did the GT Academy. And every time I see photos of you online and videos of you racing the HSVs and in production touring cars in New South Wales, or be it in something else, you actually have a lot of fun doing it, and you get great satisfaction. Is that what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. I love it. I would drive anything. You know what I mean? It's seats in the steering wheel. It doesn't matter. But I think I fell into production cars because it was somewhat affordable at the time from where I was, to use the springboard of GT Academy once I came home. Use that to sort of get a couple of sponsors on board, and just slowly progress from there. We've had a few of our own race cars now that I've built with my brother Jared, that we own together. So, and that was another thing that enabled me to keep racing, is to share that cost with him. And he's had that same passion and love for racing as I have, albeit not to the same level, but still at a very high level. But yeah, I absolutely love it. I don't know. There's something about production cars that just gels with me. I think it's, growing up as a kid and you see all these cool cars on the road, and, what would it be like to drive them fast? And, you can turn them into race cars, and they're still relevant to people. I think that's something that's very important in motorsport, like it was back in the day. We've lost that a little bit, I think, in some of the premier categories. I'm not going to go into politics or whatever like that with anything else, but I think it's something very important, and it gives people, it's the same conversation that has been had many times. It gives people something to support, and they see something similar to what they drive on the street out on the racetrack. It engages them at a different level, and they have a personal interest in it. So I've been afforded some cool opportunities over the years, and starting to get a lot more now as well, which is really cool. I'm driving with Matt Holt a fair bit these days in his HSV. I'm also involved in the new Camaro production car that's being built for the 6 Hour. We're actually testing this Thursday and Friday, its first track test. So that'll start to happen more and more, and gear up towards the 6 Hour next year, which on paper it should be a really good thing. Whether or not it'll have enough for the BMWs, we'll have more of an idea after this week. But some really cool opportunities, and met some really amazing people along the way, like Matt Holt and Chris Lillis and Trevor Mirabito, who gave me my first production car start as well. So, the motorsport community is a very small community.
Yeah.
You sort of know everyone, or know someone who knows someone else, which is really cool. So, I'm just grateful for the opportunities I've had, and hopefully they continue for a while yet.
I know, I can tell you really enjoy your partnership with Matthew Holt. I know Matt as well. I haven't spoken to him for some years, but when I was involved with New South Wales production touring cars, the production touring car family were back then, and still are now, I believe, a very tight-knit, very welcoming group of people who were very passionate about their motorsport, just as much as they're passionate about, I guess, the historical aspect of where motorsport in this country came from. That it came from production-based racing. That's where the Bathurst legend grew out of, and they take great pride in keeping the race on Sunday, sell on Monday mantra right to the very core. And it's a great family, isn't it? The production touring car family.
It is. Like you said, they're all very welcoming. I experienced that firsthand when I first started. We had an incident where something fell off the car. I think it was a muffler, and you can just go and see your fellow competitor, and they loan you bits to help get you back on the track. And even though you're racing them, they're helping you at the same time. So it's something very rare. I don't think you'll find too much of it in the higher levels because it's so competitive. But at the grassroots sort of level, everyone's there for the same thing. You're there on your weekend to go and share the passion that you have and race your car, and you want to put it on the trailer at the end of the weekend nice and straight with no damage. So that's something that they all have in common, and it's a very cool community to be part of.
In the production touring car series, you've raced a number of different cars. You've raced HSVs, but you've also raced a VW Golf, which is a very cool bit of car. You and your brother developed that car from the ground up and did quite well out of it. Which is the more fun out of the two, the HSV or the VW?
It's hard to say. I mean, the VW we built, so it's a different buzz developing your own car and, getting it to that point where you're winning races, especially when you start out with less equipment than who you're racing. We started with a very basic car, and over the years we developed it and added parts and, spent the money and got it to the point where we could win races. I still remember that first class win I got against Daniel Smith. I almost crashed off the track. I was cheering that and pumping my fist.
Well, I know you did crash a Golf at one point. We'll touch on that in a minute.
We'll touch on that, yeah. But yeah, being a Holden fan growing up and driving Matt's HSV, it's something of a childhood dream to drive that, and Matt builds such a beautiful car and well prepared car. Remember the first round I was at, I just saw his cars. I think he had 3 at the time that he'd built and had on the track, and I just thought, God, one day, I'd like to drive a Matt Holt car or own a Matt Holt car or something like that, and planets have aligned, and we formed a really good friendship, and he's sort of taken me under my wing in some respects. He's
a very good driver. I take.
He's an extremely good driver. He's very, very good driver.
Yeah.
Multiple state championships. And he just loves it. He wants to do things well. He wants to do things right, but he just loves racing, and I really respect that about him.
I remember when he won I think he won 2 championships in a row in 2008, 2009, and that's when I got involved with the production touring cars. And the professionalism that for a state level competitor, it was a professional outfit, but very family based. The car was immaculate, and he was very proud in the preparation and the not only the mechanical preparation, but the physical preparation with the styling of the car, the color schemes and everything. He just put a lot of effort into that, and it translated to the success on the track. He was always competitive, and that's what I remember him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you can have someone like Matt in that category who, if you want to and you have the ability to spend that money, you can prepare your car to that level and that sort of presentation. But at the same time, if you're on a shoestring budget and every panel's got a mark on it and you don't have sponsors and it's all different, all the panels are a different color, you can be out there racing on the same track. That's the best part about it. It caters for everyone.
Absolutely. He's got a good sense of humor too, so
it's a wicked sense of humor, but yeah, it's very good.
Now,
doesn't mind a joke at his own expense either.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Now, you did mention before about trying to keep a straight car. Now, you've done time attack competitions as well. You were doing some stuff for Volksmuller, a Sydney-based tuning outfit that specialises in Volkswagens, and you were their driver for a period of time doing time attack events. You did the World Time Attack Challenge a few times. And there was a particular incident where you had a bit of a tank slapper going through turn 1, which you managed to live to tell the tale with only a few scratches down the left side of the car. There should be vision on YouTube about it, but explain what happened there.
So you have to go back to the lap before, which coincidentally was my fastest lap of the weekend. But to get a front-wheel drive car set up fast for the track, it needs to be loose. It needs to be really stiff in the rear and disconnected, and so I came through turn one the lap before, and it stepped out, and I held it in a really nice slide the whole way through. But I thought, I could do that faster. So I came around the next lap, and I sort of preempted the slide. So as it happened, I corrected it, but just put me a little bit too far wide on the exit. Um, just dropped the wheel, and all I thought at the time was, I've seen so many crashes go left and hit that concrete wall. I thought, I'm going to throw as much right lock as I can at it. Fortunately, it spun the other way, but there'd been a rain shower probably half an hour before, so all the grass was extremely wet and slippery.
Yep.
And it just kept sliding and kept going, and eventually just kissed the tyre wall. And it was a brand new car for that weekend too, and had a beautiful liquid moly livery all over it. And I just turned that side of the car black, unfortunately.
I remember that. I was there at that event with my
I know you were, yeah.
and we were there. We're holding our breath in the truck, and when we saw it, and we're like, "Oh, don't wreck it, don't wreck it!" And you managed to live to tell the tale, and probably wrecked a few tyres.
No, yeah, it was all superficial. I drove it back to the pits, and it was just scuffing up from the rubber on the tyres. That mechanically the car was fine, but yeah, learnt a lesson that day.
Time attack racing is different to production car racing. It's probably even it probably does remind you a little bit of racing in time trial mode in the sim competition. Is there some similarities to the sim racing attitude that gets translated into doing time attack competition, or is it a very, very different mindset to really apply yourself?
It's like qualifying, but just that's all you're doing, qualifying, and you've got to make every lap count. So there's no warm up. You've got to go out and be fully committed and absolutely focused for that lap and every time. It is very different to a race where you can sort of take your time and look after the car and ease your way into the race. But yeah, time attack, it's a different beast. It's a challenge of getting the most out of yourself and out of the car, which I really enjoy. And like I said, in time trial racing on the sim, it's the same sort of thing. Yes, you get to reset every time, but you're doing that same thing over and over again. You're starting a lap, you're trying to get the most out of yourself and the most out of the car every time. So it's a different challenge. Some of the cars are unbelievable, the amount of money and speed that they produce, and they're built to do one lap. So it's maximizing absolutely everything and just lasting that lap and then go and prepare it again and do it all over again. So it's I enjoy it.
Which of the cars in time attack would you like to actually get in there and have an actual proper go?
RP968. It's got to be the Porsche. I've become pretty good friends with Bart over the years, Bart and Moore, and that thing's just next level. Obviously, it's the record holder, and they classify turn one at Eastern Creek as turn two for everyone else. So to be able to go through turn one absolutely flat and not even consider it a corner, that's pretty cool. So yeah, one day hopefully we'll get to experience something like that. But driving two cars there this year, the V Sport GR Yaris, which is our work sort of promo vehicle, and also a WRX for MGRIT Motorsport, who that thing's got a bit of power. We've got a bit of testing to do yet, but it might have a bit of potential to upset a few people.
You mentioned V Sport before. You've actually got a pretty good relationship with them now. You're actually involved in their technical sales team. So tell us how your partnership with V Sport came about.
Just sort of stumbled across it. They still are, or we still are, I should say, a sponsor of production touring cars, a category sponsor. So always known the guys over the years and bought bits and pieces from them over the years, race gear and car preparation things. And then just sort of started looking out there in the market for a new job and a new challenge, and got in contact with John Healy at V Sport and sort of just asked him a question: was there anything going? And luckily there was, and sort of fell into that job and seemed a good fit with the guys, and get on with himself and Blake really well. And it's that old saying, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
So talking about race cars and talking to people who just love to take their cars on the track or just look after them and get the most out of them, that's something I want to be a part of, and luckily I am, and I don't see myself moving away from that job anytime soon. I think I've found the one for me. So we supply to V8 supercars and professional race teams all over the country. So keeping myself in that sort of circle is pretty cool as well. But yeah, it's a great team of guys, and I love what we do.
And the V-Sport team, they've actually been very supportive of drivers that have come through the ranks of motorsport. I know they supported Zach Bates recently, who's raced in the 86 series. I think he did Time Attack with you guys as well, from memory. And they've gone on. Was that his uncle?
That was his uncle.
Yep.
His uncle Nicholas owned or co-owned V-Sport at the time. But yeah, we 100% we support Zach at the moment. He actually took a few of us out for passenger hot laps in his supercar the other week at Eastern Creek, so I was lucky enough to get a ride with him. But yeah, we sponsor and nurture grassroots motorsport all the way up to the professional stuff, where like I said, we supply supercars. So they sponsor production touring cars in New South Wales. They sponsor Improved Production New South Wales. So we are a part of it. We love motorsport as much as the guys out there competing as well. So, and we compete as ourselves also. So like I said, it's a good fit for me. You'd almost argue the perfect fit for me. Yeah, no, very happy, and I don't think I'll leave there anytime soon.
Yeah.
This is the Motor Dream Podcast.
All right. You've already expressed that you are motorsport mad. You are car mad. You work in motorsport. You race in motorsport. That's pretty clear to me. But I want to know what makes Josh Muggleton tick as a car person. So I want to ask you, a few simple questions just to try and really, scratch the surface of what really makes you tick as a car person. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what was the first car that you drove?
I had a 1991 Honda Civic GL hatchback. It was white. It never had any hubcaps on it. It was dented. It had a little bit of rust, but I loved that car. I cried the day it left. It ended up at Pick and Payless at Blacktown.
Oh no!
No! Watching my dad drive it away, and had a tear in my eyes. It disappeared out of view, and yeah, that was my first car. Loved it. I'm still on the lookout for one. If I ever find a white one, it's a project I'm going to take.
That's really cool. I actually remember that shape of the Civic. That was a really cool shape for its time. Yeah, how much did you pay for it when you bought it at the time?
It was $1,400 at the time.
Okay.
It was manual, obviously.
Yes.
We bought it off a used car lot at Auburn, just off the main, across from the movie cinemas at Auburn there, off Parramatta Road.
Oh yes, I know there. I think
it's not there anymore. It's not there anymore, but I remember exactly where it was.
Yeah, that's really cool. What about the first road trip that you remember going on?
Oh, that's hard. It probably would have been to Queensland when we were much younger. I think Dad had a footy camp up there at the time, and we went in his SB 3800 HSV.
Oh, how cool are they?
Yeah, it was Phoenix Red.
Yeah.
Love that car. I'm still looking for one of those as well. just in case.
They actually were a really nice car, because I remember the SV5000s, and I know someone that owns an SV5000 who you might know as well within the motorsport circles. Peter Hennessy, his partner Karen. They own that. So I've seen it at Peter's workshop many times over the years, and he's done quite a bit of work on that car. But I do remember the SV3800, the V6 version of that. That's a rare one now. That's a very rare car.
It was. Yeah, there's not many around. You very rarely see them pop up on the classifieds, but it was red. It was it was probably the first car I fell in love with at the time when I was a little kid. But Queensland with the cassette player, and it was a long trip back then, especially when you're 5 or 6 or whatever it was. So that's the earliest road trip I can remember.
I think the earliest road trip I can remember was doing Bathurst or whatever, and that was a long trip. Still feels like a long trip now, but it's, I guess with the benefit of time and growing up, it doesn't feel as slow and long as it does when you're in the passenger seat.
Absolutely.
All right. Who taught you how to drive?
Mainly my dad.
Yep.
Mainly my dad. But my mum took me for my first drive. As soon as I got home from getting my L's, I browbeat her into letting me drive her car around the block. It was mainly my dad, my uncle, and I had some driving lessons with a fellow we knew as well, who was an ex-policeman who also had a driving school, so he helped me prepare for my test. But
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's a cool story. What about the car you wish was never made? The one car that you look at now and you go, why was that ever built?
It's hard to answer because I love cars. I always find, and I like different cars too. So it's even trickier to answer. I mean, there's always something about each car that I like. I'll always find something. There's cars I never really understood.
All right. Well, tell us about the one car that you've never really understood why it was made. Then
PT Cruiser, Chrysler PT Cruiser.
I think I know someone. You and I know someone. I think that did have a Chrysler PT Cruiser at one point. So
we used to call them PT losers when we were growing up.
All right. So what's your reason?
It just didn't know what it wanted to be. It wanted to be new. It wanted to be old. It wanted to be out of proportion. It had a crap engine. It could have been so much cooler. For me, it was just the lack of potential. It had so much potential and just fell on its face.
That's a pretty cool explanation. I thought that I saw one and it was kind of purplish maroon in colour, and I thought it looked all right. But when I look back on it now, that the PT Cruiser was really it never really had its place anywhere. I don't think it even has its place now. It just looks so out of place.
I think I know what they were trying to achieve, and I'd like to think that whoever came up with it had this grand idea and it just got squashed by the executives as it went up the food chain to what we ended up with. I'd imagine it, was lower and bigger wheels and a V8 and, maybe a 2-door, and then it just got made more sensible and boring along the way. So I could be wrong.
Yeah, true. Have you ever named your cars?
Only based off their number plates.
Okay, that's fair enough. Because I know, case in point, Paul Morris, when he's named his race cars, he's always named them, I can't remember what cars that he's had, but I know Holden Racing Team, they named their cars Beth. Like, for example, Brock's car named Beth. So,
I've named our race cars. I've named the race cars.
All right.
They've had names. Road cars, not so much. I've either had personalised number plates or just made up some silly moniker off the number plate. But the first race car we built was a white Mark V Golf GTI.
Yep.
So we thought, okay, it's German. It's white, so then we sort of likened that to blonde hair, and we came up with Heidi Klum, so it was called Heidi.
Nice.
The next car was the one we built after Heidi had its brake failure and rolled. We didn't name it straight away, and then I used to take this sort of IKEA furniture to the racetrack that I put my gear on. I had some fans put into the shelves, and so I could put my helmet on it to keep it dry and all
Yep.
that stuff. And back to Matt Holt's guys, Jay and Stuart used to take the piss out of it for me for having it. So one day at Sydney Motorsport Park, they went and grabbed some big tree branches off the tree, the smoking tree at Eastern Creek,
Yes.
and placed it in there like a bit of IKEA furniture to add a bit of decor to the thing. And then all of a sudden, next round, they'd come with a fern pot plant to put it on there. So then that car got named Fern as a result of that.
Fair point. That's actually very cool. What about your car? Well, actually, does Matt have a name for his car, his current steed?
Matt does have a name for all his cars.
Why am I not surprised?
He's had Donkey over the years. He's had Crispy, because that was a car that was burnt. He bought it as a write-off. It was burnt, so that one was Crispy.
Yep.
But his latest one, the one he's made extra special is called Cav, after his previous boss who passed away. It's called Cav.
That's nice.
And much like our current car, the Audi TT, it's called DB26, which we bought it off our friend Daniel Byron, who passed away. He bought it to build it into a production car. When he got diagnosed with brain cancer, my brother and I sold Fern and offered to buy that car from Dan to help with his medical bills at the time and everything. And so we've called this car DB26, which Daniel Byron, and 26 was his racing number. So that'll forever be DB26.
Yeah, that's a cool number. What about the Camaro that you're building up for the 6 hour? Have you named that yet, or are you still in the process?
I haven't. Chris Lillis, the owner, he's named it. It's Ellie May.
Ellie
I don't
May.
know why. I just know it's Ellie May. His current VF, that's called Kate, after Kate Moss, because it was built beautifully from the ground up, and it's Kate Moss, so makes sense.
Makes sense. Yes.
Ellie May. I'm not to the bottom of that one yet. I'll have to find out.
I'm curious to know. I'm really curious to know.
I will send you a message. I'll come back to you.
I just love it. Love it. I take it Matt's going to be involved with the Camaro project as well?
He is. Yes, he is. He's stepped aside from driving to let me into the seat. But he's been heavily involved in the build of the Camaro and the preparation of it. And he will be managing the team at the 6 hour and looking after that side of things with strategy and team manager.
Nice. That's cool. That's cool. All right. What about the best memory in a car? Can be a row car or a race car, and be clean about it as well.
I didn't even go there until you mentioned that.
It's only because it could go down. It can go down a huge amount of rabbit holes here if we went down.
Absolutely. No. We'll stay away from that. It'd have to be in Matt's HSV when I won my first race outright.
Yeah.
That was in 21 at Wakefield Park. Won my sprint race outright, which, having only ever really driven class cars up until then, was a bit out of the question. But obviously Matt's car's very, very competitive, and that was a pretty cool feeling. Had a few tears in the eyes on the cool down lap after that one, but that was probably the best memory in a car so far.
That's really cool. All right, what about car fad pet peeves, like the sticker family or stickers on a car, and not including race cars, maybe even air fresheners or fluffy dice? Yes or no to them?
It's the rosary beads for me. I mean, it'd be annoying. They just bounce everywhere, and I just couldn't do it. All the crystals that hang off the mirrors. I can't say anything about the family stickers. I don't have them, but being a dad now, if my daughter ever wanted to get them, I'd get them in a heartbeat for her. So I'm, I'm not going to mention those.
You might be in a
Yeah,
lot of trouble. You might be in a
I'm
lot.
soft like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally
Um,
understand.
I don't know. People who just keep their cars disgusting. They don't look after them. They keep rubbish all through them. Um, that's probably my biggest pet peeve.
So you're not a fan of like people eating in cars?
Oh, you can eat in car. I eat in my car, but I clean up. Like
True.
I'm talking about people who leave empty bottles and rubbish and, never vacuum it and all that stuff. I've seen some terrible cars over the years when I was managing a workshop and like, yeah, I just don't understand it. But, cars aren't everyone's priority and main thing. I get that, but it still bugs me.
One more question before we move on. What's the one thing you wish people knew more about cars?
That's difficult to answer. I know there's a lot of non-car people out there and they don't understand it. So maybe if they could, live a day in our lives and see it from our perspective for a day and have the shoe on the other foot to sort of understand where we come from and what they mean to us. Maybe that.
I
Yeah.
just like to ask that question because it gets people, gets people thinking, because I've had some pretty cool answers in that. There was one previous guest that said, she's surprised how there's so many people that don't know how to change a tire, and that like people like don't. It's a common thing now. We should really know how to change a tire, or even let alone how to do basic mechanics. That's something that is lost on a lot of people. They don't know how to actually do basic maintenance to a car. They let other people, they pay other people to do that, and that's probably one.
Yeah. Look, I get that, and that's a life skill, as you say. But I'm not going to judge people too harshly that they either don't want to or don't know how to. Each to their own in some respects. But yeah, you're right. It's a very good question.
All right, Josh Muggleton. Here's the reason why we got you on the podcast, and I've been trying for a while, but we finally got here. You wake up one morning and you're getting ready to go to work or go to the track for your next meet, and you get a text and it says check your bank balance, and you look at it and you think, oh come on, this is ridiculous, surely not. But you go and check your bank app, and you find out suddenly that your bank balance has gone to infinity levels. You've gone to an Elon Musk type billionaire situation. You've become filthy rich. So you sit down for a minute in absolute shock, and then you get an email from this mystery benefactor, and it tells you can buy anything you like. You can buy any car, bike, or machine, but the caveat is you're only allowed 3 cars, bikes, or machines in your dream garage. So with that in mind, what is the first machine that you would have in your dream garage?
Well, firstly, this is torture, right? To a car
Yes.
person.
Yes.
To make them choose only 3 is torture. And I thought I had that. Like when we first spoke about this, I thought I had it. This is easy, no problem. And right up until this started, I'd changed it 3 times in the last 5 minutes. So yeah, first one, being a Porsche fanatic ever since I knew what they were.
Yeah.
I'd have to go for my ultimate Porsche, which is a Porsche 918 Spider. For me, that's the epitome of engineering at the time. It was right in the middle of that hypercar battle with the McLaren P1 and the LaFerrari. But yeah, obviously being a Porsche fanboy as such, that was my pick. So yeah, that'd be number 1, I think.
That's really cool. And I do like the 918 Spider. Where did that love of Porsches first originated? What really got you into Porsches?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It's you grow. I was just never really a Ferrari person. Lamborghinis were, yeah, they were cool, but they never really spoke to me. But yeah, I don't know. There was something pure about Porsches that just stuck with me. I remember my uncle when I was little had a Porsche model car, or a few Porsche model cars that I always looked at whenever I went over his place, and he um he ended up having a Porsche 911 GT1 remote control car, the
Oh,
petrol ones, the
yes,
nitro
yeah,
ones.
yes.
Yeah. He let me have a go of that one time when I was a kid. I didn't crash it. My brother did, but I didn't. Um,
Did you get into a lot of trouble for that?
no, no,
Oh,
it was wet, and we went to an industrial area, and we had all plenty of room, and he just should have braked, but he didn't. And,
that, that, but that's a
tore a
gut.
corner off it, and yeah,
Oops.
and then it got rebuilt, and it was fine. I think it gave him something to do at the time, so he didn't mind it.
That's pretty cool. Okay, I can
Yeah,
appreciate. I can
that's probably
appreciate.
where the Porsche started.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I can appreciate where the Porsche interest came from. I'll tell the Porsche 918. It's a mid-mounted sports car, basically a two-door coupe or an open-top sports car, the Spider form, which is what you've gone for. It's one of the first plug-in hybrids for Porsche as well. So it's powered by a 4.6-litre Porsche V8, but it has two electric motors, one on the front and one on the rear axle. So it's a really cool bit of kit. It's got a 7-speed gearbox as well. The battery itself is a 6.8 kilowatt liquid cooled lithium battery, which has a range of 680 kilometers. That is insane. Utterly insane for a V8. And the car itself, it was built between 2013 to 2015. Only 918 of those cars were made, which is logical given the
Appropriate.
appropriate. Yep. They all sold out by 2014 with an asking price of $845,000 US. That is utterly ridiculous for a Porsche like that. But it was all based off the Porsche RS, like the Porsche engine that was used in sports car racing at the time, the RS Spider Le Mans prototype. But it provided the basis for what was a very, very cool car.
Yep, yep, and yeah, like I said, it was in the midst of that hypercar war at the time, and the big three at the time were all competing against each other to try and get the best and the fastest. And I remember all the journos and Top Gear at the time were all trying to get their holds on one to test them, and yeah, that was just a very cool time in the motoring world
Yeah.
with that engineering and all these new things coming out. It was really opening up people's eyes to what can be done and looking to what's next. Like, where do we go from here?
We look now with the electric vehicles and the like. There's so many more options available in terms of EV cars. Are you excited for what's to come with EV?
Oh, yes and no. I don't believe EV solely is the answer.
Yeah.
Just the infrastructure we don't have here, at least here. Well, I mean, we don't have the infrastructure for it. Um, I've driven them and they are amazing, performance wise. I do see the appeal of, but I don't believe that's the answer for us, at least here in Australia. It'll suit other countries where they've the landscape lends itself more to it, to the infrastructure, but the vastness of Australia and sort of how we travel and where we live, and the hot climate as well, it doesn't lend itself towards that for me. So you know it's cool to see what is possible and what might be coming, but I think a combination of petrol and internal combustion, so hybrids, is probably where we need to be.
Just want to wrap things up here on the Porsche, just for one little record here, which I think you'll be impressed with. 2013, a WISAC package optional model of the 918 RSR went around the Spider, I should say, went around the Nürburgring and broke the 7-minute barrier. 6 minutes 57 seconds. So that reduced the previous record by 14 seconds, and it made it the first street legal production car to break the 7-minute barrier around the Nürburgring, which is insane given that car, $800,000 US and street legal, can do those kind of speeds around the Nürburgring. It's incredible.
Yeah. The scary thing is that with that is that we've come so far.
That's
a 911 GT3 does that time.
Yes.
So while it might not be the fastest car now, it's sort of the turning point, and a lot of cars these days are benefiting from that technology that it came out with at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what's the second car you would have in your garage?
The second car is going to be my daily. Okay.
Yep.
BMW M5 CS.
Ooh.
The new one.
Ooh.
Brand spanker. I've gone for modern, but it's got to be the family daily car. Ridiculous family car. I know, but
it actually looks rather good. I'm a BMW man myself. I'm a fan of the M3, and I don't mind the M2. But the only thing I don't like about the current BMWs, I don't like the nose on them. They look dreadful. But I look at what I see of the M5, and the nose on it actually looks very, very decent. So for me, that looks really, really cool. And the M5's been around for what, so many years. That's really cool. I like it.
Yeah. So I've always been an M5 man. Yep. That started, I don't know if you remember, but it'd be the mid to late 90s. BMW started doing some BMW films based on different cars.
Yep.
And the M5, it was the E39 M5. It had Clive James and Madonna, and where he was the chauffeur.
Yes.
And he took her on a drive around the city and just absolutely just scared the pants off her. But that just stuck with me ever since. I've always wanted an E39 M5, but since you're limiting me to 3 cars, I thought we might
make an exception for the E39. We might just include that as an extra car. We might allow that.
Can it come on a trailer behind the M5 CS?
Yeah, we could do that.
Well?
We'll put that as the extra car. We'll put that as the 4th car, and we'll touch on the E39. How about that? I am very flexible in that regard. That if it's really of significance, we'll include it. But yes, we will include that. So, yeah, I'm looking at the engine bay of the current C2 and CS. I'm sorry. 4.4 litre twin-turbo V8 producing 467 kilowatts or 750 newton-meters of torque. That's insane numbers. It's the most powerful.
Bonkers quick.
Oh.
Ridiculously fast.
Have you taken it around Sydney Motorsport Park?
No, I haven't driven one yet. No. Maybe one day someone will be silly enough to lend me it. But for now, I could dream until this mysterious benefactor deposits that money in my account.
Yeah, that's true. So what about the E39? I will touch on that, the E39, because I remember the early 90s M5, which was the inline 6. So that was, I think...
Yep, E34.
The E34. Which actually did very well. It at the Bathurst 12 Hour in 1992, it finished second outright. Could have won the race as well. It just felt just short by I think about 30 seconds or something. But it was just, I think it might have been a lap or two down. I can't remember. But it was very competitive, and that's how I remember the M5. I mean, I'm not I'm more of an M3 man, but that M5, they're fairly quick. Those M5s, particularly the E39. Oh, yeah. I look at the details of the E39. So they were built between 1998 and 2003. So they've got a 5-litre V8 with a 6-speed manual, and they did all right. They produced about 20,482 cars between that time, and 0 to 60 miles an hour, which is 100 kilometres an hour, 4.8 seconds with a top speed of 250 kilometres an hour. But that was limited. So you had to do, if you wanted to go further than 250, you had to obviously try and tweak it to take off the speed limit. But that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and you know, back to those sort of manual cars. Well, it was obviously 6-speed manual, but it was
Yeah,
very mechanical. You could turn everything off. It was a pure driver's car,
yeah.
and the V8 obviously helped too. So
Which do you prefer, the V8 or the inline six from the E34?
I always had a soft spot for the E34. I planned to buy one of those many years ago, which never eventuated. But no, it'd have to be the V8, especially that one. It revs to
Yeah.
like 8,500 or something, I think. So
And what about sedan or the estate version, the touring wagon? Would you prefer that or the sedan?
no, sedan. Have to be the sedan.
Yeah. All right, that's going to go into.
Interlagos blue as well.
Oh, now we're talking. Now that's a cool color. All right, so the CS M5 and the E39 M5, they're going in the garage. So that's the
Yep.
second and third choices. I'm fine with that. The final choice in your dream garage, which is now number 4.
Again, this goes back to childhood. You ever?
No, I
All right.
probably remember.
Oh, you might not. Do you ever remember the TV show called Viper?
Actually, no, you're right.
There
I
was a very
don't.
small, and you'll even struggle to find it now. But there was a TV show called Viper, and it was based around a Dodge Viper, a detective or something at the time, and he
Oh,
had a
okay.
red RT10 Dodge Viper. And I remember, watching that as a kid with my brother in our room on our little TV, and just that was it. That was cool. And
Oh,
I had one as a 1/18th scale model, which was my first model car. The old Barago ones that you can make
yes,
yourself.
yes.
Yep, that was my first model car as well. So, yeah, I've got to have that. I've got to include that, I think.
Oh, I must admit, Dodge Viper, I have no problem with that. I mean, 8-liter V10. I mean, that is staggering. That it is very front heavy. It's got a very long nose on it. But when you look at the styling for its time, late 90s, I know Chrysler get a lot of flack for being troublesome mechanically and everything else. But and I know we shit canned before the PT Charger that we talked about, but Chrysler did make some really cool cars, and the Dodge Viper was one of them, and the RT10 especially. Like, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I absolutely agree with having the RT10, the SRT model. That is, wow. Or and we were aware that of its racing pedigree prior to discovering the Viper show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It used to compete at Le Mans.
That's right.
I think in later models, in the GDS version, that's a hard top version. Yeah, that was again sim racing stuff, but that was in a game that I used to play. It was in the original Gran Turismo as well. Yeah, it goes back to that model for me. It goes back to the TV show and being a kid and falling in love with cars, and that was one of my poster cars, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like the Countach that people had on the wall, of Diablo.
I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
Testarossas, all that sort of stuff. That was my poster car. So yeah, Dodge Viper for me. Doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be the best handling car, which it's not by far. But man, it sounds cool and it looks cool.
And it had,
it just has to.
Yeah, that's true. And it also had not that good of brakes from memory. Remember, there was some concerns in the Bathurst 3-hour race when I was supporting the 1000 back in the late 90s. There were one or two people that turned up in Vipers, and everyone saying, "Oh, they're going to cook their brakes. The brakes are too small. They're not going to survive 3 hours. It's going to be too heavy." As it turned out,
they never did.
They never did. They never had any brake problems. It was
They never had a brake change and never had a pad change or anything. They just went all day.
They did. They actually proved to be a very, very, actually very competitive car and a very safe car. They just had other factors that brought them down. So there was nothing to do with the brakes. They could handle the brakes around Mount Panorama quite easily. So, yeah, that's my memory of the Dodge Viper, that everyone thought, oh, it's going to be too heavy. It's not going to handle Bathurst. It did. It did very well, in fact. So, I love it. That's a really cool. That's a really, really cool garage. We've extended it by one, but I'm okay with that. So the BMW M5 CS, the current model
Yep.
BMW M5, plus the E39 BMW M5, fine with that. The Porsche 918 Spider, definitely love that. And the Dodge Viper SRT2. Yeah, I have no problems with that. That's you've got the best of everything. You've got the best of Germany, and you got the best of American muscle. That's a pretty cool garage as far as I'm concerned. That's there's a lot of childhood vibes in there as well, plus practicality. And when you look at the M5, it's not, yes, it is a high performance car, but there's some practicality about it as well. So yeah, that's a big tick for me.
Yeah, but I've just checked my bank account as well. It's still nothing.
Yeah,
So.
I'm sorry, mate. Sorry. I tried, but look,
It's healthy to dream. It's healthy to dream.
And that's what it's all about. We've got to have a light-hearted look about it and just think, oh, what would we love to have? So, and look,
Absolutely,
mate, you've been so great with your time. I know we've been trying for a few weeks to try and get you on the show to talk about your sim racing and about your motorsport in recent times. It's been really cool to talk with you about that, and it's good to see you doing quite well in your career, and I wish you all the very best moving forward, particularly with the Camaro project for the Bathurst 6 Hour. I think that car going up against the Mustangs and, of course, the BMWs, that could be a real threat for a victory at Bathurst next year. What would it mean for you, just to wrap things up, what would it mean for you if you won the Bathurst 6 Hour?
Oh, that's a pretty far claim, but like you said, on paper, it looks to be a really good thing. We've got the advantage of two less pit stops than the BMWs as well. So look, it would be validation, I suppose, in some respects after everything. Not that I've had it tough, but everything I've been through in going through GT Academy and struggling my way through my career to do what I can. So this is a big if, but if we were to win, that would be pretty big validation for me that I can do it and on a decent stage too. But we're talking about supercar drivers in fully well prepared BMWs and the like. So like we just said, it's healthy to dream, but I have to be realistic at the same time. We top 5, that's definitely achievable. If the cards fall our way, who knows? We got to be there at the end. So
Totally.
Yeah, we'll start with testing this week, and we'll give it our best shot. That's for sure.
And best shot you will give it. So congratulations again for what you've done so far, and all the very best for Bathurst. We hope you do very well.
Great. Thank you very much. Cheers for the time.
It's amazing to think how much sim racing has benefited drivers like Josh, who have used it as a stepping stone towards a professional career. Whilst he may have been horribly unlucky at not winning the GT Academy 10 years ago, it hasn't stopped him carving out his own successful path in the sport, both as a driver and as a proud member of the industry. As for his conquest for victory in the Bathurst 6 Hour, I can report that the Camaro that he shared with Chris Lillis and Nathan Callahan made it to the finish in its maiden outing. The car had qualified strongly in 8th place, narrowly missing the Class A2 pole position by only 0.2 of a second. The Camaro itself ran strongly for much of the race and led the race at one stage near the halfway point. However, mechanical problems in the final hour of the race whilst running 5th and on the lead lap put paid to their chances of victory. The Camaro would limp home to finish in 12th place overall and 4th in Class A2. Whilst it was not the result Josh, Chris and Nathan wanted, you can be rest assured that they'll be back in 12 months' time for another crack at outright glory. My thanks to Josh for giving me his time and generosity in chatting about his dream garage. Speaking of the 6 hour, 2 of our previous guests also took part with considerable success. Our maiden guest, Luke King, was also competing in Class A2 against Josh Muggleton, and he did claim some silverware, finishing second in Class A2 and 7th outright in the Mercedes-AMG C63 that he was sharing with Andrew Levitt, only finishing 1 lap adrift of eventual winners Simon Hodges, George Madecki and Jaden Ojeda. And finally, a massive congratulations to Courtney Prince, who appeared in episode 10. The former Carrera Cup Australia pilot rewrote the Bathurst history books along with her co-drivers Carly Pacini and Suzanne Palermo. The all-woman team took out Class B1 honours in their BMW 135i, becoming the first all-woman team to win their class in a Bathurst endurance race, as well as eclipsing the best finishing result for an all-woman lineup in the 61-year history of endurance racing at Mount Panorama. That previous record was held by Melinda Price and Karen Brewer, who finished 12th in the 1998 Bathurst 1000. A massive congratulations once again to Courtney, Carly and Suzanne. Well, that's it for this episode, and as always, make sure you follow the show on all the socials with the handle The Motor Dream, which is also the hashtag. And make sure you head to the show's website at themotordream.com.au, where you can listen to episodes and find show notes and information on the show and the guests that appear. Don't forget to like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen to, and make sure that you leave a review also, because that's how we keep improving the show each time we release an episode, and it also attracts new listeners to the podcast. Thank you for listening to the Motor Dream podcast. I'm Connor McNally, and remember, as always, please drive safely on the roads. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Motor Dream podcast. This series is proudly produced by Beast Productions.